Steve Hargadon, and we are opening the doors to the Connected Educator Cafe. This is a fun night. We haven't heard from Esther. Oh, I'm getting an email from her, so she's having some trouble. So I may bring her in by phone. Hang on 2 seconds here. Okay, but we do have Julie, Lindsay, Kathy Schrock, and Shannon Miller in the room. Welcome to each of you. And you're all being very polite, not grabbing the mic. But you are all here, and thanks for being here.
Thanks, Steve.
Hi, Steve. Julie here. Thanks for the welcome.
And thanks for having us all. This will be fun.
Yes, can't wait. There's so much going on this month. We all have Connected Educator Fatigue Syndrome. There's the Ed Connector program. There are the book clubs. There is a badge of the day that you can get if you wait till the end of this session. There'll be a slide with the badge. And we've had just terrific conversations each night as part of the cafe. And they're all recorded and up on the cafe website, which you just go to connectededucator.org and then in the right-hand menu look for the cafe. Okay, so this is a chance for those of you who are here live to indicate where you're listening from. It's fun to put a note in the chat as well. So we just got Australia, which makes us officially international. Thank goodness for that. Yeah, I really love these conversations in a very selfish way. And I'm hoping that those who have attended have enjoyed them as well. Oh, of course it's you, Julie. So funny. I should have known by the smiley face you'd know what to do there. Of course, if you've done this exercise with us before, then you might not have known you can click on that star and you can actually pick another icon for your icon. And Julie picked the smiley face and planted herself there. Yes, and those of you coming in with an iPad I'm not even sure you can see this. My guess is, can you see it, Lori? Oh, good. I'm glad you can see it. Okay, we'll move on, but still keep putting those notes in the chat if you would. So I'm going to try and bring Esther in now. And while I do this, you don't need to be twiddling your thumbs. The first part of this, we do a very short kind of introduction, 3 to 5 minutes for each of you of your background. So if somebody hasn't met you yet, they don't know about your work, it's kind of an overview. And let's just go in the order of the photos on the slide. So Julie, would you just give kind of a quick background on who you are and what you do?
Sure, Steve. Hi, everyone. Julie Lindsay. I'm based back in Australia, northern New South Wales, on the east coast there. I was out of Australia for nearly 15 years, teaching as an international educator across 5 different countries, including the Middle East, China, and Africa. And I'm now doing consulting, doing different things. I'm the global collaboration consultant for Think Global School. I'm working as co-founder of Flat Classroom. I'm working with global collaborative projects and teacher professional development and live events with Flat Classroom. And I'm a former ISTE board member. I was the international rep on the ISTE board for a couple of years. So great to be here. Thanks. Over to you, Kathy. I think you're next.
Thanks, Julie. My name is Kathy Schrock. I'm a retired school district technology director, and I've been doing this web stuff since about 1995. I created Kathy Schrock's Guide for Educators, which I collected. My background's library media, so I collected a whole bunch of resources and put it together for teachers and library media specialists. And retired in June of 11, and now I just go all over this place talking about effective use of technology across the curriculum, whether it be iPads or digital literacy or infographics or assessment or collaboration, whatever. I talk a little bit about everything, and I was on the ISTE board with Julie before, and there was a little break, and now I'm on the ISTE board again. So thank you very much for having me.
And my name is Shannon McClintock-Miller. I am the district teacher librarian at Van Meter Community Schools in Iowa. I've been there for, this is my 7th year. And before that, I stayed home with my 3 lovely children. And so I have an art degree and an elementary ed degree, and then I went back to school and got my master's in library science 7 years ago, and have been doing this job at Van Meter. And my job at Van Meter really encompasses a lot of technology. I'm the technology integration person, specialist also at the school, and do a lot of collaborating with the kids and with teachers and with the administrators too on their vision and where we're going at Van Meter. So I'm really enjoying my job at Van Meter, and I also do a lot of traveling, presenting, and consulting at different places. I just went to Buffalo over the weekend to Western New York to do a presentation there, and I've been enjoying that too, and doing a lot of online presentations as well. So thank you for having me tonight. It's an honor to be here with all of you.
So I think Esther's going to be coming in. I got a little distracted, so I'm not sure I heard all of that. But did any of you learn anything about someone else that you didn't know?
Oh, we can talk? Yes, Shannon. I didn't know Shannon had an art degree. I didn't know Shannon had an art degree.
It probably makes sense though now, right, Kathy? As how many, I love that creativity piece, and so that is my first love. Is I went to art school, and I always thought I wanted to be an artist. And so when I got offered this job, it kind of encompasses everything.
Yeah, that's why you're kind of like the middle brain, because you've got that creativity and you have the left brain technical stuff. So you're pretty much right in the middle. Yeah, it does make sense.
And I'll jump in here. I don't know Shannon very well at all, and it's great to meet you, Shannon, and to be in this session with you. And I've actually got a music degree from years back. I was a music teacher originally, so I really, really believe arts, creative arts, and technology go together very well. So it's great to find another person who's followed that field as well.
Well, and I thought the same thing, Julie, that I've admired your work for so long, and so it's really great to meet you too and to be in this call with you also. So it's great to hear that you have that media background. Teacher librarians and media people, they're pretty awesome.
Okay, so I'm obviously a little distracted, but you haven't lost me completely. I'm still trying to get Esther in the room. Let's do something since you all finished so quickly. Tonight, so we're supposed to be associating these cafe events with the themes from Connected Educator Month. And the theme that we've associated tonight is from connection to collaboration. So why don't you feel free to kind of raise your hands amongst the 3 of you so you can respond in whatever order you'd like. But how important an issue is this, the connection to collaboration piece? Does it come naturally, or do we actually have to think about tangibly moving people from the connecting to the collaborating? So Julie, just grab the mic.
Got my hand up. Okay, this is a big thing because we talk about connected learning, we talk about connected educators, and we are. Look at us, we're connected. We're in this room. We have a number of guests. Welcome people who've come in to be with us, and this is great. But then to move to a collaborative learning mode is really a big leap. And are you still hearing me? Sorry, something's just flashed on my screen here.
That's just Esther dialing in.
Oh, okay, no problem. So, and I think this is where educators, they tentatively take that first step to be connected. You know, once people move into Twitter and understand the power of Twitter, then that's a big step for them. But then to actually learn how to use collaborative tools and to collaborate, not just face to face but at a distance, I think it does take quite a bit of effort, and it doesn't necessarily come naturally or easily, particularly if your education practice has not encouraged, or your environment you've worked in has not encouraged collaborative learning from the start, which I know a lot of schools haven't and still don't. It's sort of go to your room, shut the door and do what you need to do, and we certainly need to break those patterns and scaffold the technology to build collaborative environments. Thank you. Over to you.
Kathy, I know Kathy wants to be called on, but let's just make sure that Esther can hear us and we can hear her. Are you there, Esther?
Oh, I can hear you, yes. I'm actually still trying to get on the computer, but it appears to be somewhat of a miracle. Sorry?
Okay. Esther, we're talking right now about this move from connecting educators to collaborating educators, and whether or not that is a step that has to be taken consciously. And we'll let we'll let Kathy respond here, and you're certainly welcome to chime in at the moment you would like to. And then once we've finished this short conversation, we're going to go back to Esther and let her give us a little bit of background on her. So Kathy, did you want to chime in?
Yes, you can still hear me, correct?
Yes, we can.
Okay, fine. I just put a headset on. I agree with Julie, but I also think that school districts that have teachers collaborate locally first, and teachers that have students collaborate locally, have learned the skills that are inherent in good collaboration. So I think sometimes having the process skills for collaboration, whether it be in person or online, almost has to be learned first before that becomes a natural fit. You know, taking turns, being positive or neutral, not so negative all the time, everyone pulling their weight, everyone not just lurking. So I believe that the collaboration skills actually are skills that need to be taught. Then the connections, however they are made, easily then learn to lead to the collaboration because they understand how that's supposed to work.
So let me say something controversial, because I never do, right? There are a lot of things that in our current education system we feel we need to teach. And I'm interested sort of in Sugata Mitra's work and Howard Rheingold and this idea that there are some things that we think we need to teach that actually we don't. So is there any degree to which we assume responsibility for teaching collaboration that maybe we don't need to be feeling responsible for, or is this really tangibly something that makes a difference?
I believe that it is a process skill for collaboration, at least so that pretty much the same ground rules are in place. Because especially when people are coming from different cultures and different countries, and collaboration might look different in one place than another. I mean, I'm an interrupter by nature, and I have to hold myself back when collaborating, especially in person, and that to someone that might be an affront. So I do believe there needs to be ground rules set. Not really ground rules set, but you need to know the process of what good collaboration looks and feels like. That's just what I think anyway.
And in terms of ground rules, just picking up from what Kathy said, I think if you start a collaboration, you need to be clear what the expectations are. For example, if you're doing a collaborative wiki research project, it needs to be clear whether this project is going to be co-created, which means that someone can start a paragraph, someone else can come in and edit that paragraph, someone else edits it again, or whether in fact it's you put your bit, etc. And because when you're working with students, it needs to be very clear what the expectation is. And culturally, and when you're working globally, there are different expectations and different comfort levels that need to be discussed between teachers. And that applies locally as well, but particularly when you're starting to look at different cultures.
So Esther, it looks like you may have successfully logged on the computer, which is good because you can see the chat. Do you have anything you want to add to this conversation? Oh, and Esther, if you hung up your phone, you're going to need to click on the talk button to talk here.
How about that? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. Can you see me, or is that
No, but if you
something?
click on the video button, we could see you.
Oh, can you see me now?
Yes.
Oh, hallelujah. Success. Yes. So, in terms of my feelings on collaboration, I do think that you have to set up a culture, not only in the classroom, but also, with your colleagues, that promotes collaboration. And I think it's the culture that really carries the whole thing. And that is basically the teacher or the leader, the person who's in charge, really needs to make it clear that working together is important, and that if you don't understand something, there's no problem. We'll all help you, we'll all work on it together, and that we have this project that belongs to all of us. And so the more that you can work together as a team, the more effective the whole project will be. And this is what I find I do in my classroom, and I also do that in working with other teachers. And it is slightly different, though, working with teachers than it is working in your class, because in your class, of course, the teacher's sort of in charge, or at least they hope to think they're in charge. But when you're working with your colleagues, everybody is pretty much on an equal footing. And so it's important, I think, to make sure that we all buy into the same project that we're doing, and that we understand what each person's role is and how it's going to work. So I don't know if this is what you were addressing. I think I see something here about librarians. I don't know. Seeing the library as a common learning space. Well, I see the whole internet as a common learning space. And I think that, in my classes, as I said, students all work together, and they produce a product. Of course, it can be in an English class, it can be a product that they're all working together on. In a journalism class, it can be like a newspaper, magazine, website, or something like that. Also, one of the other things that I think is important is that when you're collaborating, working on a collaborative project, there has to be an audience. You can't just do it and then expect there to be no audience. You need an audience for kids. You need an audience for adults. There needs to be some reason why everybody wants to collaborate. And usually it's, to show the world, or to show a group, or whatever, what it is that you've worked on as a team. Anyway, I don't know if I've talked too long or not, but this is my theory on the whole collaboration.
So go ahead and turn your talk button off when you're not talking, and then others will know you're done. Shannon, you have your hand up. Did you want to respond to that or add something else?
Yeah, I think, too, I love what everybody is saying, of course, because I just love collaboration, but I also think that we need to remind people when they start collaborating, like our kids and our teachers and people that we meet, if it's, at a conference or online, on Twitter, or whatever, that it looks different for everyone. And at my school, we've been really creative with how we even just collaborate, finding time to collaborate with our teachers, and, being the librarian and being the person who is collaborating with the teachers on how to integrate technology and how we're hooking all of these things together within our subjects. My principal, she even comes down and she'll cover my library and technology classes so I can go collaborate with the teachers in their common planning time. And we've been really, that was a huge aha, but kind of like an obvious aha to us when it happened, because we got creative with our time, and just like we do if it's collaborating on Twitter, it might be midnight, it might be 6 in the morning, or texting someone, or collaborating in the hallway. But, you know, using it as an excuse that we don't have time to collaborate is kind of a thing of the past, because I think that with our network and how many people we have to collaborate, not just for us, but for our kids and our teachers and even our parents and our community, that it's always accessible and it's always, I think, within reach on how we look at it and how we maybe look at collaboration itself differently.
Okay, so I want to give Esther a chance to do the short bio background of herself, but also knowing that since there are 4 of you, that what we might want to consider doing, Esther, is when you kind of give your background information, if you've also thought about something that you're passionate about, something that's on your mind lately, this kind of deep dive interest that we want to explore for each of you tonight in some way, could you also sort of address that? So kind of what your background is, and then something you're really sort of passionately thinking about right now?
Okay, is that for me? I should start on that?
Yes, let's have you start.
I guess I'll give you my background. So I have been teaching next year in January 2014. I will have been teaching for 30 years. So we're going to have a little celebration. And I taught and have been teaching English and journalism at Palo Alto High School. I actually was a journalist prior to being a teacher. And when I first arrived at Palo Alto High School in 1984, there were 19 kids in the program, and it was your traditional high school journalism program. It had like a 6-page small paper and these 19 kids who I'm not sure exactly why they signed up, but it was kind of exciting for me as a journalist to be there. And so through the years, I have promoted this collaborative learning. And I did it long before it was in vogue. And I'm actually not sure where and why, but it might have come from my journalism background because, you know, newspapers are always put together by teams, people, and so that's perhaps part of what happened. But it caught on really well. The students really liked it. There was a lot of collaboration early on because I switched from when I was first there, kids were typing everything up on a typewriter, and then we were cutting out the stories from the typewriter with X-Acto knives or razor blades. We never hand them out today, but that's what it was like back then. And then pasting it up on a pasteboard and then shipping it or taking it to the printer. So in 1987, I applied for a grant for Macintoshes, the state of California, and I got the grant by luck. And so that was actually really the beginning of the intensive part of collaborative learning, because actually as a teacher I had no clue how to use those Macintoshes when they arrived. So I needed to work with my students, and they were incredibly helpful, and that worked really well. So to make a really long story short, over this 30-year period, the program has grown so that now it's actually the largest journalism media program in the nation. And so we have about 600 kids taking journalism, 5 other teachers, 4 other magazines. We have television, we have video production, we have online broadcast journalism, and then of course we have this newspaper that I first started with. And the whole program is based on collaboration, collaborative learning. So, you know, if I don't know something, I will actually tell the kids that I don't know how to do it, and then they take over and help each other and help me. So I've also been connected with Creative Commons. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but I was chair of the board of Creative Commons for 2 years, and now I'm vice chair working specifically with education. And I'm also connected with PBS Learning Matters, which is probably the best educational news broadcasting, unbiased out there. And it appears on Friday nights, usually on the NewsHour. So if you haven't watched it, you probably you'd probably really like it. They also have a website, it's learningmatters.tv. So, and I'm still teaching not full-time. I'm now 80%, which actually feels like 110. But I am still enjoying it, and I find that it's actually much more exciting now because there's a media revolution taking place. And my theory is that every single kid in this country needs to know how to write for the web. And also they need to be able to understand how to discern whether the information they're getting is correct or biased or opinion or factual, and we should be teaching it in the schools. And I think that it probably fits most effectively in a social studies class or an English class, where we teach kids how to write for the web, how to navigate the web, how to protect themselves from the web, from things on the web that might be a problem. So it's an exciting time for everybody. Anybody have any questions?
So actually, if you're interested in the topic, Esther came on thefutureofeducation.com a few months ago and we talked about journalism as the 21st century curriculum, which was really fun and well worth listening if you want to hear more on that topic. Esther, I'm going to move us quickly on because with 4 of you, time will be tight. Kathy, did you want to respond?
No, I just wanted to go next.
Okay, go.
Well, it's hard for me to hold in my passion. On the connecting theme, what I've started doing lately is connecting with people outside of education to see what they do and how that could be applied to education. So what I'm currently working on, and this is what I put in for my ISTE presentation, I hope I get it, the business world nowadays is starting to move away from using regular marketing to using stories. And there's a group called the Hoffman Group that put together this great presentation they're a marketing firm, about using stories to sell your product. And I looked through it and I asked them permission to use components of it and parts of it for a presentation about using storytelling to teach content. And while I'm doing that, I'm studying all the research that shows how storytelling really does allow anyone to acquire content to the point of, in a couple of weeks, you think that it was your content to begin with. So I'm doing my whole presentation on stories and storytelling digital, but it doesn't have to be, but I'm doing it on digital storytelling across the curriculum and ways for teachers to take the content and tell it as a story. So that's my current passion. I usually investigate something in depth for a year and then move on to something else, but that's what I'm doing right now.
Esther, I wonder if you're hearing me. It looks like you jumped away for a second. So
yeah,
Kathy was
I'm here. Don't worry. I'm still here.
Kathy was talking about storytelling. You and I had a conversation this year, Esther, that kind of dove a little deep, right, in this question of the protection of freedoms and thinking about freedom and agency. To what degree do you think that teaching journalism helps your students to be participants in the democracy when we have mixed feelings about the freedom of information?
Well, I think it's the best way to teach kids about democracy and to get them involved in the democratic process. So the idea is to teach kids that if they have a problem of some kind, there's something that they don't like about what's going on in the world or their society or in their school, the most effective thing is to know how to write about it, talk about it, blog about it, whatever. Because, what are the alternatives out there? The kids, either you do nothing and don't pay attention to what's going on in the world, or alternatively, you graffiti up the freeway or do things that are completely socially unacceptable. So I think it empowers kids because they feel like they're part of the democratic process. Just like this whole big thing we had with the Obamacare. My kids felt very empowered because they were able to write about what they thought, and they're involved. And they're pretty much involved in most of the things that are going on locally because they feel like they've got a voice. And I think the kids in areas where they don't have a voice are the ones that we think need to worry about. And I think journalism is the most effective. It's a natural way for kids to be involved in the democratic process. I mean, I remember when I was in high school, I was part of the student government, and the student government was just a fraud. I mean, we had absolutely zero power. It was just kind of like an exercise in futility. But, and I think, I don't want to say that about all student governments, but that was my particular experience. And whereas I think with journalism, if you can actually publish on, you know, Facebook or, I don't know, Twitter, Tumblr, any of these things, you know, just or a blog on Google, then you do feel like at least you're being heard. People follow you. So that's my feeling about journalism and democracy.
Okay. I don't see Tom DeBoer in the room, and Tom would normally at this point do the kind of the midway report on what's coming up tomorrow for Connected Educator Month. Let's, given that we have such intriguing guests and we have still 2 more to hear from on the deep dive, let's do this. If you're going to something tomorrow for Connected Educator Month that you'd like to share, please put it in the chat. And if you've asked a question that didn't get answered, I haven't been able to follow the chat too quickly, please feel free to post it again, and we will try and make sure that it does get discussed. So Shannon, let's go to you. What's something you're thinking deeply about or is really on your mind or that you're passionate about right now? And Shannon, we need your mic if you don't have it on. Well, it looks like Shannon's had a slowdown. I can see that indicator. And Tom DeBoer did join us. So let's go to Tom really quickly, and then we'll go to Shannon.
Just turned it on.
Okay, Shannon, I think let's hold on for 1 second. I'm going to have Tom give us the update on what's taking place tomorrow for Connected Educator, and then we'll go right to you.
Steve, so I think because you got so many great guests tonight, I'm not going to take my usual 5 minutes. And more to the point, I wouldn't know where to begin where tomorrow is concerned. As we said in the newsletter, I'll just read you guys a list of everybody who has an event tomorrow. And they'll give you sort of a flavor of what's going on tomorrow. AAR, EDC, Brain Pop, Cable in the Classroom, Common Sense Media, another great Connected Cafe event, COSN, Denver Public Schools, Edmodo, EduBlogs, ePals, EdTech Austin, EdWeb, ETLO, Flipped Learning Network, Intel, Grunwald Associates, KinderChat, which is going to have, KinderChat's actually going to have Rafi for a 10 o'clock event. MacArthur's Institute of Play, Microsoft, NAESP, NASSP, National Writing Project, New York City Department of Education, NSTA, OpenIDEO, Pearson, Platform for Good, Tech, Turk, Virginia Society for Technology and Education, and the Virginia Association for Curriculum and Development. And Esther, go ahead, Esther. I'm going to stop right there.
I'm not sure Esther knows she raised her hand. I don't think she meant to.
So I'm just really excited about that list that you just read off. It's fantastic, and I wanted to see if it's possible for you to send it to us. Or to share it in some way.
So Esther, I'm going to put the link in the chat to the site that actually has the calendar, and you can go to it directly. And
Thank
Tom,
you.
did you want to finish up, or are you done?
Oh, there it is, connectededucators.org. I think it's a great list.
Look at that list, Tom. That's just overwhelming. How fun. Tom, you're awesome.
I'll be up at 4 tomorrow starting to work on the newsletters.
But Tom, the man who doesn't sleep. Thanks, Tom DeBoer. Okay, Shannon, let's shift to you. Something you're thinking about, something you're passionate about, something you want us to know you care about.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. I think I have a little bit of a lag at times. But one thing that I am really passionate about, and I have been for a long time, but really recently I've been focusing on it with the kids at school and things that I've been talking about, is just the student voice and the voice that they have, and what all of this, yes, we're all creating and collaborating and connecting, but what does that participatory culture mean to our kids? And I love bringing, when I go and present, or if I'm writing, or even if we're just, connecting in our school, I love to hear what the kids have to share and to get them, doing the teaching or flipping or speaking about, the things that they have to add, because there's nothing better than listening to what our kids have to share with us. And so we've been doing a lot of that. We always have, but a lot of it really just looking at it a little more closely. In our school at Van Meter, we're going to go through we had a bond issue passed, and so our school is going to be renovated within this year, and next year especially it will be done in 2 years. And so we've been thinking a lot about, like, the library is going to move into the center of the school, and how our classroom is going to look to, provide the environment that we need to support this student-centered environment that we want to have, and student-centered learning. And so it's really, really interesting. And that's what I'm very passionate about, all that participatory and maker space and creativity and collaborating and connecting that we can do with all of our kids.
Shannon,
so
there's a distinction that gets made
a great time to be a teacher.
Personal learning and personalized learning, right? The difference between somebody else determining a personalized set of things for a student versus the student creating a personal learning experience. Can the same thing be said for student voice? Is there a difference between sort of bringing students to an adult table and being able to contribute, and having students find something sort of unique or interesting on their own that is of their own self?
Oh, I definitely think, our kids, everything that we do at school, even today I taught, let's see, kindergarten, second, and fourth grade today, and even the kindergartners, and we used a couple tools after we read The Mixed Up Chameleon. And so using digital tools and capturing images and capturing little video, and the kids are using Instagram, that we have it on our iPad for the library, and they're using that to capture their voice, and they know these things are going to be published. We're making an ebook and published online. And so I think that having them, they have a voice, they have in what they're learning, and they have choice in what they're learning, but also to be able to share it and to lift up their work. And they do so much better when they know that they are creating and writing and collaborating for an audience. They're proud of their work, and I think that's the big thing, is to give them choice to be themselves, to contribute to, not just what they're learning at that moment, but to what they contribute to globally.
Okay, let's give Julie a chance now to kind of share something she's thinking about. And then I'm going to give you all an opportunity to ask each other questions and do the same with the audience.
Sure, Steve, yeah. Okay, so one of the things I'm working on at the moment is this collaboration, facilitating what I call facilitating positive social change. So in other words, going beyond, okay, getting people together, collaborating, okay, making a product, what does that mean? That's great stuff. But then how can we actually impact on society? How can we actually move this now to improve the world, to change the world through these collaborations? And what sort of pedagogies do we need to look at? Well, what works? What actual pedagogy works that will facilitate positive social change? So, and some of the things that I run, Steve, as you know, live events around the world where I bring students and teachers together at the same live event. We're working, honing in on the methodology that we're using for that in terms of face-to-face, and also the whole virtual piece, because when we run a live event, we also have the whole virtual opportunity for people to come in as virtual team members to these essential collaborations. And a couple we've got coming up next year. I'm going to the American School of Bombay in end of February to run a global social entrepreneurship summit with Sharon Peters. And at that event, we're going to combine design thinking with flat learning, so this whole sort of flat connected classroom piece or connected learning piece with social entrepreneurship, which brings in this whole sort of, well, how can we collaborate and facilitate something that could join with businesses around the world or be be implemented in different parts of the world that will actually affect change. And the other one I'm running is another Flat Classroom conference in Sydney next June. And our theme for that conference is what's the other story? So we're looking at how we can actually join people together, so once again from different parts of the world, real time and virtually, to look at breaking through stereotypes, breaking through some of these misconceptions we've had about other people, and finding out other stories. What's the story about Africa? And of course, Africa has not just one story. It's not even just one country. It's a number of different countries that all have their own individual stories. What's the story of Indigenous people in Australia, for example, and how can we learn about that and then take that knowledge and build something to facilitate positive change in the world? So it's, I think, a lot of what I'm thinking about at the moment, Steve, is going beyond just that sort of initial collaboration, but saying, well, okay, we're learning how to collaborate, we're learning how to use technology to collaborate, so what and now what? And there are bigger questions that we still need to work on and to answer. So that's what I'm doing, partly.
So Julie, if you think about social change and you think about working on things, I mean, India is sort of this classic example of the sort of the colonial school system and kind of the rigid school environment. At what point are students going to want to collaborate to change the education system?
Oh, yes. Well, at the point where they are able to personalize their own learning, and we have such a long way to go in most schools in the world. At what point are students allowed to choose their learning pathway? At what point are they allowed to reach out and learn from anyone else in the world, not just the teachers who are in front of them, who may not be the best people that they can learn from? At what point are students going to be given the freedom to develop their own personal learning network and become part of different professional learning communities as a student, no matter what age, and learn in that way? And I've been reading all of Siddhartha Mitra's stuff this week as well, all of his wonderful soul work that he's got out there, and we're really just at the brink of something amazing that's happening in the world. And what's holding us back, of course, are conservative systems who well, don't get me started on that. Okay, that's probably enough at this stage. But that's a whole other session, Steve.
Well, so some of you know I'm actually at a Seoul this year, right? So the Siddhartha Mitra is the one who won the TED Prize, and it's the self-organized learning environments, and I'm at this Seoul in North Carolina. And there's so much interesting going on. We'll save it for another time as well. But certainly I think that he came out of India, and so much of that work was done in India. It has got to be an interesting part of the story, as well as Kiran Birsetti and the protagonist in Every Child and the many things there. I'm intrigued by how much of my current reading about education is actually coming from India.
Well, that's interesting, yes. And I think India as well as China, we don't see into China as much as we should, of course, because of various political things stopping us from seeing in. But there are some amazing things happening in both of these enormously populated countries that we should be looking more closely at, and some very interesting sort of approaches to learning. But once again, also still a number of conservative approaches that aren't looking at the student as a learner. And this is what we need to do. We need to look at the student as an individual learner and harness the technology to provide the best opportunities for that student. And that's really flipping a lot of things on its head, I think.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, so if you have a question for Esther, for Shannon, for Kathy, or Julie, either about collaborative learning in journalism, or student voice, or stories, or facilitating positive change, just raise your hand and I'll give you the microphone. And obviously, guests, panelists, you're welcome to jump right in if you have something that you'd like to ask. Is there anything that came up that anybody wants to drill down on?
Can I jump in again? I want to ask Kathy actually to just go on a little bit more about her exploration with working with businesses. This is something I've started to look at too, and the fact that is it just a difference in terminology? For example, businesses use the term knowledge management. We use something else. Knowledge management doesn't mean a lot in education from my experience, but Kathy, tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with those connections.
Well, basically, I was just the same way I always do. I mean, I read, mass regular magazines that people read who aren't in education, and I'm always looking for things that, whether now or later, can be used to support the educational process, but who's ever doing it never thought about education. And as soon as you contact anybody, and if you have a thought about any particular way it can be used, as soon as you contact any company or any one person doing something, and tell them, in education, you give them some idea of how, I give them some idea of how I think it might work or help or support education, they're just astounded that anything that they would write would ever be even thought of being used for education. And so it's very, very easy. If you ever see anything that you think would be good for education, no matter what you believe in, whether it's your passion or your next door teacher's passion, just write to the people. Everyone's very receptive and will give you permission to use their items and then edit them. And even, these are large companies that charge, lots of money to consult with people, and they'll gladly share the resources. And I've been doing that for years, and this is just the one that I'm stuck on right now, this telling content via stories. And there's a funny story. Last week I was in a hotel, of course, somewhere, don't remember quite where, and one of those TV shows about, one of those entertainment TV shows, but it was on early in the morning, was talking about the research that they've been doing in movie theaters. Someone had been doing in movie theaters. And if they're showing ads in the movie theater and you're chewing popcorn, you don't remember what the advertisement was about. But if you're not chewing popcorn, you do. And that's all they said. So I had to go back. But there's actually really strong research that says you need to use your mouth and you actually unconsciously repeat the advertiser's name, and you can't do that with popcorn in your mouth. So should we let kids chew gum while we're telling them stories? There's all the research. It's really fun to do, and I'm going to be presenting a lot of it, so you don't have to go bother looking all that up. I'll have it all linked for you in a month or so.
Kathy, have you made a connection with Steve Denning yet, who does a lot of work in workplaces with storytelling?
I came across his stuff, so when I was doing my research, yes.
I put a link into an interview I did with him.
Okay, great.
And I've done a couple of interviews on workplace learning, because you can make the argument that the businesses who really care about learning have done a fairly significant amount of research in determining how to best create a positive learning environment. And of course, this is a connection you don't need me to make, but it feels like John C. Brown in many ways makes that connection over and over for us.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Thank you for that link to the interview. I'd be interested to listen to that.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about stories too, especially because we did the Future of Libraries conference, and I mentioned last night, it feels to me like there are several news stories being told about libraries that aren't necessarily the same story. So the original story of libraries really centers around books. So is it okay that we now would have multiple stories, and do they need to be the same story, or can they actually be different stories? And if they're different stories, should they still be under the same library umbrella? Or does library as makerspace actually, should that be a very separate story from library as continuing education and learning hub? And if in fact they don't need to be the same story and they actually are going to be separate kinds of organizations or institutions or stories, will we see any of the same kind of thing happen in education as a whole?
You're talking to the wrong room, because I would assume that Shannon and I would both say that the physical library as a hub for anything that needs to go on to support learning is important, whether it's a maker fair in the corner or, you know, a storytelling center at the other end. So, you know, as library media specialists, we've, at least the people on this call, that have always embraced anything new, and we're probably the first ones to do it in their schools, probably to the chagrin of somebody who wanted to bring their kids in to do regular research.
Oh, yeah, and I'm a huge fan of that, no question. But there were times when I thought, well, what they're really talking about is a community center. And does it diminish the message to be calling it a library? Or is it better to actually be thinking of it as, you know, depending on what the particular idea was, as something separate? So I won't jump into that pool too deeply if it's shark infested.
Oh no, I don't think it's shark infested at all. Matter of fact, many schools are now calling it the Learning Commons. So that gets away. That kind of says it all right there.
With a nice hat tip to David Lurcher, I'm sure. Okay, so if anybody else has a question, or panelists, if you wanted to ask each other anything in specific, you're certainly welcome to. And I'm looking at the chat to see if I've missed anything. There was a question earlier about the potential difference between how teachers connect and librarians connect, and I'm not remembering the exact question, so if it was your question, please post it again. But is there a difference between how librarians connect and teachers connect, and is it something that librarians have been naturally doing for a longer period of time, and so there are potential lessons there?
Shannon, why don't you take that one? Yeah.
I'll take this one. I think that we had this conversation today, actually, that I think that teacher librarians are naturally good sharers, and they love to help others. I think that just comes with part of being a teacher librarian. But that being said, it's not, you know, we all know that it's not everyone, just like it's not every teacher, or maybe that every teacher isn't good at connecting too, because there's definitely people in my school that are just as good at connecting and collaborating and making, you know, those connections to everybody that I am. But I think that we probably do it in a different way. We have the opportunity to work with all of the kids and all the teachers and our community as a whole, not just, you know, our classroom. And so we can have that cross-curricular, you know, connections and just a little more flexibility, I think, than a lot of the classrooms have. And so we can be a huge support that way, which has led to a lot of the collaboration that I've been so successful with, because especially now with the Common Core and all the things that our teachers need to be doing with our kids, that's where we can come in even more and be those people that can really support and lift them up to teach them how to also be good connectors and collaborators as well.
Okay, feel free, anybody, to put another note in the chat and we'll follow up. But while we're waiting for that, we want to do a little bit of a special meet and greet activity. So those of you who are in the room that we haven't heard from, if you have a Twitter handle, go ahead and put it in the chat, and also put in something that you're personally interested in. And we're going to let the panelists pick one or two of you to take the mic and tell us about your interests. So for instance, I would put in my Twitter handle @SteveHargadal, and then I might put in agency learning. I have this idea of self-directed learning. That's something I think a lot about. So go ahead and put in, if you don't have a Twitter handle, you can put in a blog address or even just your name. And then panelists, if you would, look for one that you want to learn more about. So we've had teachers teaching teachers technology. We've had creativity in relation to learning. had WordPress in and outs. We've had authentic science, citizen science. We've got school library impact, flipped classroom. Any of the panelists interested in drilling down on one of those in particular?
Well, I can talk about the school library a little bit. The school library has become kind of the hub at our school, the center of everything, because they have 35 computers in there. And kids can go in there and search and work together on all kinds of activities, projects. And it would be nice to see all these public libraries become hubs like that. So if you don't have a computer at home or no access at home, it'd be a great way for kids to be able to connect on the web. And so that's one thing that I've noticed, and I think it's pretty exciting. And the other thing is that our library also hands out books on Kindles and on Nook, so kids can check out a Kindle or a Nook and keep it for a couple of weeks and read all these books. I think that's pretty exciting as well.
Awesome. Hey, Craig, I would love to hear a follow-up from you on this. So I've given you mic privileges if you want to click on the talk button at the top left.
Well, I'd love to follow up on some of the checking out of technology. I'm not in that bracket at this point, but getting the devices into my high-poverty elementary school is such a step towards bridging that divide. I was slipping a little $200 netbook into a girl's backpack just a few minutes ago before she went home, and I took old Alpha Smarts that were ready for surplus, and I'm circulating those to kids, and they come in with stories that we upload through a cable, but by golly, the kids are producing additional writing. So there's no question that devices in the hands of kids expand the school days in such exciting ways, and hopefully that we're taking technology new and shiny and old and still serviceable and getting it into the hands of kids who need them.
So thank you, Craig. So Kathy said one that you get asked a lot about is the best way to assess creativity. There was somebody who posted about creativity here, and if it was you, please feel free to raise your hand. It's the virtual hand icon. Let's see if we can find that. Okay, so Lori, if you want to grab the mic, tell us what you're thinking about. Click on the talk button at the top left.
Actually, I'm on my iPad, so I'm not so sure how my talk button is working. Can you hear me?
It's working great.
Okay. Well, in the school that I'm in, we're really focusing on adding creativity into our curriculum. But I would agree with Kathy. The difficulty that we're having is determining how to assess the output of the work that the child is doing. How do you determine what's the most creative? And it seems like we have students who just kind of hang back and they don't feel maybe as motivated to be creative. They are so used to being in a situation where they're just supposed to get the right answer.
Kathy, did you want to be our final response?
Did you ask me, Steve?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the answer to how one assesses creativity. I mean, it's project-based learning usually in that, and there are ways to do that to assess, but I'm seeing a lot of creative things being done with little content, and seeing, like what Lori said, is lots of dry content not presented creatively. So I still think that's an area that we have to work on, is the formative and summative assessments for basically for any project-based learning.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, we're going to leave it there. We do try and finish on time. Thanks to Julie, Kathy, Shannon, and Esther. I'm clapping for you. This hard-to-find applause button under the smiley face. Thank you each so much for being here. Thanks, everybody, for coming. Sounds like tomorrow will be a very busy day. But please do join us, Jim Bonides and Yovel Badash. We're going to talk about STEM. If you have time, if you're not completely exhausted by the end of your day, join us again in the cafe. Thanks. Take care. Have a good night or day. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for coming. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Steve. Bye for now.
Okay, bye,
Yes,
Julie.
thank you very
Have a good
much.
day.
It was a very interesting.
Thanks, Esther. Always fun to have you on.